good to have you back as we stand so that the catcher can get into character as we go through this. Now, you've been vocal on Twitter about your opposition to this new plan. We got you here. Why so opposed to it?
Well, I'll tell you what, Bob. You know, I was a catcher who obviously had some plays at the plate where I got run over, and I thought it was a big part of my job to block the plate in certain situations where that run was going to be considered a big run in that point of the ball game. So I think you're taking away a weapon for certain catchers in the way that they can really affect games. Obviously, concussions are a big deal. We want to eliminate that, but I think in taking away this part of the game is a huge mistake by Major League Baseball.
Jack, at the winter meetings, you were opposed to this. We also talked about how hard it might be to legislate. Are you still at that point?
I'm on the same page as John is, Bob, because I think it's an instinctive play at the plate, and you look at a catcher trying to make that play. It can be a bang-bang play, and I think that's an exciting part of baseball. Now, when you talk about the idea that, well, there are medical issues involved and concussions and players could get injured and major league teams wanting to protect their assets, I understand all of that. But I also think, and John can speak to this, catchers are taught a certain way to block the plate. And there's a way to do a sweep tag. There's a way to do things to not put your body so in front of the plate and put yourself in peril. I'd rather see a catcher do that than a catcher being worried about a collision, and all of a sudden we have a little bit of a waltz or a little bit of dance at the plate instead of an exciting bang-bang play.
All right, now we go back to 2003 when Flash was catching for the Yankees. Take us through a play that you think Bernie Williams thrown to you here that might be a good routine for catchers.
Well, I'll tell you what, the whole play is dictated by the runner coming around third. In this situation, it's Aubrey Huff, who happened to be a buddy of mine from my Tampa Bay days. I knew he was not going to run me over. I was able to throw my leg into the baseline and block him off and apply the tag and get an out. Frank Thomas was a guy, when he came around third base, you knew he was not going to run you over. Darren Erstad, the totally different side of the spectrum, he was going to take a shot right at your chest and try to run right through you. So as a catcher, you had to make a decision. Am I going to throw my body in the line of fire right here to try to save a run, or am I going to know a guy might run me over and I might do a sweep tag?
You know, Jack, you mentioned that catchers are taught how to block the plate or sort of obstruct things to save the run. You know, maybe it's not Major League Baseball should be legislating. Maybe its teams should say, you know, we want you to do it this way. We want you to sweep tag. We'll concede the run, or maybe teams take it the other way.
All right, I think John makes a great point talking about how catchers are told to block that plate or save that run. But how about if Yadier Molina is your catcher? How about this guy who is your most valuable player? I'm sure the Cardinals would say to him, listen, we want you to try and stop that run from scoring, but we also want you on the field. We want you to be out there. I remember Jorge Posada, one of John's former teammates. This was a guy who quite simply didn't block the plate. Now, he got some criticism for that, but Jorge Posada stayed on the field. That bat stayed in the lineup. And at the end of the season, at the end of the day, I think the Yankees wanted Posada's bat in the lineup. He wasn't a guy who really blocked the plate.
Well, Jack, you bring up Yadier Molina and his, you know, you want to keep him in the lineup. How about Buster Posey, the all-star catcher with San Francisco, who ended up getting hurt a couple of years ago? And that's when this conversation started, when he blew his leg out. He was set up entirely wrong, in the wrong direction. That's why he got hurt on that play. But you can see San Francisco saying, listen, we don't want you blocking the plate anymore. Do the sweep tag, and we'll take our chances having you in the lineup.
Now, we'll take a look at that in a second and some of the other collisions that have sort of thrown up a red flag. But here's why Major League Baseball is doing it. Sandy Ellerson on the committee on this rules change. He said, this is, I think, in response to a few issues that have arisen. One is the general occurrence of injuries from these incidents at home plate, and also the general concern about concussions that exist not only in baseball but throughout professional sports. It's an emerging issue and one that we in baseball have to address. So that's part of the impetus for this rule change as well. Now let's delve into that next piece of video and some of the collisions that we've seen. Some bang-bang plays, a lot of shoulders being thrown. I mean, Flash, what would you say if I pitched to you the idea that there would be a target area that you could hit on a catcher?
Yeah, I think every catcher, when a guy comes home, is thinking they're going to get leveled in the middle of their chest. You can see Navarro right there had his left leg extended. He hurts his knee. Mark Teixeira going after Wilson in Anaheim. He rolled his ankle on that play. But the one play everybody's going to remember and talk about, Buster Posey, you could see right at the beginning of that clip, he was set up towards right center field. His left leg was exposed, and that's why he blew his ankle out and his leg out. As a catcher, you're taught left leg facing third base. Your knee is going to buckle back this way. 14 years catching in the big leagues, I never had a knee problem, and I think it was because I was taught the right way how to block the plate.
If we watch that play with Buster Posey that we just saw, and you enforce these new rules, guess what? The runner is safe. There's no way that Buster Posey is going to get him because he's not going to be able to do what he's doing there. So I think a lot of these plays at the plate, which usually have been so exciting in baseball, We've lost that. And I know we lost Buster Posey. The Giants lost Buster Posey, and John is right. That's what got the momentum going. And when you have Johnny Bench supporting this, you have Bochy supporting this, you have Mike Scioscia, who used to basically just stand in front of home plate and not let anybody get through. When all these guys are supporting it, you have to believe that there is some validity to it. But despite all of the things that they say, I still go back to the instinctive part of baseball. And, Bob, we talked about this with John in our pre-show meeting, but what about if a catcher has to lean up the line to make a play, and then there's contact between he and the runner? So now the umpire's sitting there saying, okay, who inspired that contact? Who initiated it? I think they're creating a bit of chaos. When a play, safe, out, just make the call. I'd rather see that.
You know, Bob, you mentioned that I was on Twitter being vocal about this. I actually got called an idiot on Twitter because of some of my opinions. But I want to clarify. I mean, I understand the concussion discussion and eliminating that part of the game. But I can make an argument that more catchers are getting concussions with foul balls than actual plays at the plate. So maybe it's a change in the equipment, the masks that we wear, and maybe a change in philosophy where you cannot hit somebody above the shoulders. But to take away the entire play, I think, is an injustice.
I just want to add this before we move on, Jack, the fact that umpires, under this new plan, they expect it to be reviewable. So if you want to find out, was the catcher obstructing when he shouldn't have been? Did the runner go after the catcher? That umpires will review this, which could create its own kind of chaos, by the way.
Right, we're already going to have challenges from umpires, so now we're going to have this too. And I just go back to the point, and John can speak to this. He was a major league catcher. That's an instinctive position. You're making a play in a split second. You're waiting for that ball to come, for the runner to come, and now you're adding things that the catcher and the runner have to think about. This is not a robotic sport. This is an instinctive sport. They're taking that away from it.
Well, let's find out what a couple of players think about this. Some have been for it. Some have been against it. Greg Zahn said this: home plate collisions should be left in the game. Just because batting champs are getting injured doesn't mean the rules should change. And then Brett Laurie said home plate collisions are part of the game. There's a way to do it and a way not to. You can't give catchers full plate coverage. And I understand it's for the safety of the game, but there's some things that I think should be left alone. So you go back to the old school, and I know, see, this is fun to watch. People romanticize it. Oh, look at this guy going after him. You understand, Flash, where they do want to protect their players and their investments. But what do you think about these shots?
I understand that, but look at the shots. They're going for the middle of the chest. I'll tell you what, Ron Karkovice right there, he knows I just saved a run for my team. I just picked up my pitcher. And a lot of us were not the most talented guys in the game and couldn't change the game offensively. If you can make a big play like that late in the game to save a run, you go back into that clubhouse knowing you did a pretty good job.
But how would you know? Let's say it's a 5-2 game, 8th inning. Would you block the plate, or would you, is that saved for earlier in the game where you might not do it, but later in the game you have
I was taught as a young catcher, the first 6 innings, you make a decision on whether you have a clean plate, home plate. If you don't, you try the swipe tag and you get out of there. The last 3 innings where games are determined, if it's a close game, every time you receive that ball, your body is moving to block home plate. You're just taught that way coming up through the minor leagues. And as Jack mentioned before, I don't think you can take that away from some of these guys.
From what you've seen in those 14 years and around the minors and spring training, do most catchers get it? Even the young guys coming up, do they do things the right way? Or is there maybe too much latitude in the way that they're taught?
Well, I'll tell you what, I think one of the big problems is we're having athletes who are shortstops in high school and college. They're being moved behind the plate. Buster Posey was one of those guys. So I don't think they get taught the right way how to receive, how to block home plate. By the time they get to the big leagues, they're just hoping that they know how to do it. I don't think it's taught the right way. Gary Tuck with the New York Yankees years ago, one of the best in the business at it. But I think you have kids coming up to the big leagues who just don't know the proper techniques.
I've even seen some catchers sometime who, when it's bang, bang, you can't do this, but who absorb the hit, who if you have the ball as the runner is coming, there's a way to tilt your body or twist your body so that you can almost brush off the hit. Now, it's easy for me to say that because I'm not brushing off a 240-pound guy, but I agree with John 100% on this, that there is a way for a catcher to do it the right way. Sometimes you're going to get injured, and we're showing all of the ones where guys got slammed, but some of these, you know what, like Ron Karkovice, I bet you he batted the next inning. I bet you he got up there. Was he a little bruised? Maybe did he have a headache? But that's part of being a catcher. So, again, I wish they hadn't done this.
All right, now Pete Rose weighed in the wake of this announcement, this plan, about the fact that he's not for it, obviously. When you look at the video of Pete Rose and what he did to Ray Fosse, he changed the course of Fosse's career.
You know what, Bob? We're going to give you a dissenting voice here. I was talking to David Cohn today, and even though he's not here with us, and then we see another fight with Brzezinski there, he said that he thought that Pete Rose play was the dirtiest play in baseball history. He said it was an exhibition game. He didn't have to run over Fosse the way that he did. So while John and I are saying we wish this rule hadn't been instituted, Cohn is for it. He said he thinks that the culture change is needed and the idea that a player shouldn't have to feel he has to be so macho and run guys over the way Rose did. And, I mean, the Rose one is beyond any other one that you'll ever see, especially when you consider it was an all-star game.
Yeah, we're watching all these collisions. There's an unwritten rule or some unwritten rules in baseball. I got leveled by Dimitri Young in a spring training game. Obviously, that's not something that Major League players like to get done. The All-Star game and exhibition, the same thing. There's a right time to run a catcher over, and there's a right time for a catcher to take the plate away.
Final thought, with having said that, doesn't then learning it the right way and approaching it the right way, you know, there's certain times I will not go at you, but certain times I have to. Doesn't that in a way take the machismo out of it and say, look, this is the right way to do it?
Well, we can talk about the Yankees. You just invested a bunch of money in Brian McCann. You want him out on the field as much as you can have him out on the field. Joe Girardi has a conversation. You say, listen, early in the ball game, I don't want you getting hurt. Late in the game, if the game's on the line, you have to do what you have to do. Joe Girardi, another great blocker of home plate, he understands the adrenaline, how you try to pick up a teammate. It's all part of the game, and I don't think you can take it away.
We spoke to Girardi about this in Orlando, and Bob, I think it goes back to something you said earlier. I think individual teams are going to legislate their own catchers. I think you're going to have the MLB rules and what they're supposed to do, but Brian McCann is going to be too important a piece for the Yankees for them to even dream that he's going to get in some sort of collision and get injured. So the Yankees are going to remind him of that. He's a hard-nosed player. He's intense. He's probably going to want to block the plate to prevent that run. They're going to want him to stay on the field.
Okay, we'll wrap this up with one more thing. Could you find a new way to block the plate that would conform with these rules? Is there any way that you see?
I mean, I guess you can say that a catcher can't take away the running lane if you don't have the baseball, which I think is actually a rule anyway.
It is, you're right.
So you can enforce that a little bit more. But I think if you're a catcher, you're taught to show the runner the back of home plate, make him try to slide to that area, then your job is to take it away.